Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Maricopa County Branch NAACP, our membership meeting. It's our monthly membership meeting. And the purpose of our membership meeting is to give updates on what our branch is doing. And so that's what we'll do today. And we'll start with the meditation. Ms. Cowan, would you unmute and start us with a meditation, please?
Dear Lord, we thank you for this time together. We ask for direction in this meeting in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So our order of business today, we will start with I'm going to give you a little bit of an update about our upcoming branch elections. And then our topic for today is talking about Project 2025. And we will be talking about the policy impact on different policies based on Project 2025. And so we'll start with updates. I am Karen Harden. For those of you that might be on the call, new folks on the call, I am Karen Harden, president of the Maricopa County branch. And I said, welcome to newcomers. This first part of the agenda is for our paid branch members, because this is an election year for the branch. And what that means is that the branch will be conducting, elections for our executive committee members. Elections will be conducted by the national office. The national office will run the election using Election Buddy. Election Buddy will be a system where everyone will be able to either vote on their phone or vote on their email. My understanding from the national office is that all elections for all branches will have to use Election Buddy, and we can only use Election Buddy, which means that, again, I'm going to reiterate, it means that paid members, the national office will look at the roster of each branch, and they will send a text message and an email to paid members, and the paid members whose membership is current, those paid members will be able to vote on candidates for office. You can choose either to just vote by on your phone or by email. Per the standards of the national office, elections are to occur in the month of November. So each month up to November, there would be different steps to this overall election process. So the first order of business today, per the election manual, is at our community our membership meeting. At our membership meeting, we are now in our membership meeting. We are to elect when in November, what date and what time in November do we want to conduct our branch election. Per the manual, the election should stay open for a minimum of 4 hours. And as soon as we take care of this order of business, we will move into our discussion on Project 2025. So I would entertain a motion from the body of when in November would you like for us to have our election, remembering that you do not have to go anywhere. The national is going to look at the paid current roster, and the national office will send out your ability to vote electronically. So the floor is now open for recommendations or a motion of when we should hold our November election.
Yeah, this is Patrick Brown. I move to hold our November election on Saturday, November 30th.
Okay. November, go ahead. The November 30th is a Monday.
Oh,
it's a Saturday.
No, it's a Saturday. It's the Saturday. It's
Oh.
Saturday. Yeah, the 30th is a Saturday.
Oh. So
yeah, it's a Saturday.
Okay. Now,
second.
Yes. Okay. There's a motion for November 30th. Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I second Marion Holmes.
Okay. All right. All right. We have a motion and we have a second. For those of you that are currently paid members, is there discussion? Oh, time. Oh, we need a friendly, well, we can vote on the motion. We can vote on the day, but then we need to come back with the time because the requirement is for the poll to stay open a minimum of 4 hours. So we could either do a friendly amendment to that.
I'll just revise my motion to include a time frame between 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. That should be a 4-hour block.
Okay. Okay. Since it was your motion, I guess you'll accept your friendly amendment, right?
Yes.
The person who seconded, I would ask, is that amendment okay with you, with this person who seconded?
It was Marion. Can I ask a question before that? What time is your regular community meeting? Is it at 1?
We normally, our normal meeting is at 1, starts at 1, yes.
And just a question, would it be better to keep it at 1 since people are familiar with that time?
I think what we do is yes, that's open to discussion.
Well, I guess my reason I chose between 10 and 2 p.m. is that this won't be a regular scheduled meeting. There'll be a time frame for people to vote for officers. To be technical, the date I chose is not even on a meeting date. It's supposed to be the 4th. I believe it's supposed to be on the 4th Saturday is our meeting dates, and so the 30th is actually the last Saturday in a month. So that would be separate from any membership community meeting.
Okay, well, I'll second.
Okay. So, further question, is there questions and discussion? Right now, the motion on the floor is that the election for the Maricopa County branch NAACP will occur Saturday, November the 30th, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.
I would just say,
now, I can't see the full screen, so if someone has a question, please just talk it out.
No, it isn't a question. This is Camilla. I just think that the timing is great. I think it's the latter part of November it's going to be a very busy month. And I think to have it that late in the month works well with everything that the NAACP has to do.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Just my comment to the discussion is just a reminder. I've said it before, but this is just a reminder that the election will be electronic, if that's the right word. Nobody has to go anywhere. People will just need to look at their phone or their computer, and we will be sending out constant reminders throughout the months that for people who want to vote.
And can I just add, just make sure, folks, that you have, you have a good cell phone number and email address with the branch, because that'll be part of the process of you getting your electronic ballot. Is it'll be text to you and it'll be emailed to you, it'll be both. So just make sure that, between now and, of course, November 30th, that, you have good information from with the branch.
And that's a good point, because also National will be sending, just for technical reasons to explain the process, the national office will send the database to the branch secretary, the president, and the officers. The only officer that sees the database will be the secretary. Vice presidents and any other elected officers do not see the database. It goes straight to the secretary, and it will be programmed, if that's the right word, by the national office. So it's important to make sure your email and your phone number is current with our branch secretary. So are there any other questions to the motion? Then I'll call for the question then. All those in favor of the motion that we have the election November 30th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in November, please say aye.
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 Any opposition, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes that the Maricopa County Branch NAACP will hold its election November 30th, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So thank you very much. And then as far as any other updates about the Maricopa County branch, 6 delegates from our branch, 6 delegates attended the national convention in July. And one of the major takeaways is the importance of educating and mobilizing folks to get involved in this election that's coming up in November. Our president, Derek Johnson, said the NAACP is nonpartisan, but we are as political as hell. So with that, that's a direct quote. He meant that we should inform people to be focused on policies and issues that affect the majority of the people. And that this also ties into our presentation today. We are going to turn the meeting over to Patrick Brown, who is our parliamentarian, as well as he is an educator, and he is going to start a discussion on Project 2025, and we will discuss some of the policies. It's a huge document, so we won't be able to digest it all, but it is now 1:16. Therefore, we will stop the conversation or the presentation in 20 minutes and open it up for discussion or dialogue. And therefore, I now turn the meeting over to Patrick Brown. And thank you for presenting today, Patrick.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Harden. Thank you, everybody, for taking some time out of your Saturday to participate in this. With the timeline, I hope we're going to do this in CP time, because as Dr. Harden stated,
that means corporate time. The C means corporate time. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. With this document's a 900-page document, and I just want to reiterate that, while, like I said, the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization, we are political as hell, and honestly, we need to be political in order to grasp many of the moving parts that are going on in society. So in this presentation, like I said, I'm an educator of background political science and history, and the big thing with this is I'm going to name names. I'm going to point out the folks who are play whichever role in this whole thing. Again, like I said, I'm not necessarily telling you who to vote for or how to vote, but providing you with information in order to be as informed as possible. Again, this is a 900-page document. I've had to read a lot of stuff over my academic career and professional career, and I read this, and my goodness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of break down a lot of the major parts of this because it's a lot of information. I know people are going to have questions, and we definitely want to have some good, rich discussion at the end. I'm just going to ask that if you have like a burning question, drop it in the chat. If there's kind of points where I can stop and address those questions, I will. If not, we'll just make it part of the discussion. Also, I might actually answer some of your questions as we go through this. So I'm going to go and share my screen with you guys so you can kind of see the presentation, and then we will get this thing going. And no money. All right. So let's just kind of get some background going here about what we're going to talk about. So the big thing is what is Project 2025? A lot of us have heard what it is. You've heard the name. It's getting a lot of airtime, a lot of places. But basically what this thing is, it's a very well-funded, when I say well-funded, about like 8 figures effort by an organization called the Heritage Foundation, as well as more than about 100 organizations that basically what they want to do is they see that the next presidential election our president should be governed in a conservative way, and ultimately the way they're approaching this is that they're looking at it as a way, and I'll use in this context of this election, their idea is that, say, of Donald Trump being elected to office is an opportunity for them to restructure our government in a way that serves their principles, their ideals, their ways of seeing the world. One of the key things that makes this whole thing kind of run is really the civil service system. And and I like to simply put it, you got 2 types of government when you are looking at how government operates, really, if it's at the state level, a city level, or the national level. You have what's called the political government or the elected government. Think like, the president, the Congress, the Senate. That's that elected government. That changes every election. People either termed out or people are voted out, new people are voted in. But on the other side, you have what's called the permanent government. These are the people who they do the jobs day in, day out, year in, year out. Doesn't matter who the administration is, they're doing their jobs. They're often the experts in their particular fields and what they're doing in government. If you work for NASA, you are an expert in space flight. That is your job, and your job is not connected to what happens necessarily politically. What Project 2025 wants to do is they feel that looking at the previous Trump administration in 2016, much of what they wanted to do, what he wanted to do, was stopped because you had people who were following the law, following policy, and who were saying, well, hey, I'm an expert in, for example, weather. So no, White House, we are not going to change the information about this storm because it doesn't fit a particular political narrative, because that's not what we do here with the National Weather Association. So the thing is that why this is such a dangerous piece of I could say potential legislation or a plan is it's looking to really undo all of that. And we're going to talk about how that impacts not just our country, but our community. Now, I want to take a quick second, and I want to talk about something called Agenda 47. A lot of people have heard about Agenda 47. Depending on where you kind of sit on the political spectrum, some people have argued that, oh, Project 2025, that's not connected to, say, to President Trump or anything like that. He's going to follow Agenda 47. That's his plan for, should he become, be elected to president. Well, the thing is that, just to put it really simple, Agenda 47 is the Cliff Notes of Project 2025. They are, I would argue they're identical documents, but the reality is Agenda 47 just uses a lot fewer words and a lot less paper than Project 2025. They're fundamentally the same thing. So I want to take a quick snapshot of like what you'll see with Project 2025 and understand that, and this is a key thing to understand, the way this is designed, the way they want to implement this, pretty much breaks up our 3 branches of government, our checks and balances, because what they want to do is based just on executive branch action alone, meaning that the president can act independently of Congress or act independently of the courts. And if you've been following, the Supreme Court has fundamentally said that the president can kind of do whatever the president wants and receive legal immunity. So that makes this even more concerning. So just kind of give you the highlights of what will happen is that, if you're familiar with the American Rescue Plan, it's created, over 220,000 jobs that would be cut under Project 2025. Food access assistance. So we have about 40 million people in this country who rely on access to, food services, things like that. It breaks down about 21.6 million households. Under Project 2025, that goes away. Civil rights protections. We've heard the term DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, being weaponized. Obviously, rights for the LGBTQ plus community, communities of color, so on and so forth. All of those protections that currently exist would be rolled back under Project 2025. Head Start is another thing that's on the chopping block, which serves roughly 1 million children. That's something that would be cut. Just recently, you heard that the federal government has given Medicare the ability to negotiate drug prices, keep prescription drugs prices lower. Those efforts would end under Project 2025. Overtime protections for roughly 4.3 million workers, that would be, of course, eliminated. The whole idea, this is something that's been going on for years. We're trying to push people towards Medicare Advantage or other private entities for healthcare. Again, we have Medicare, which is actually a fantastic program. But of course, with under Project 2025, it would push more people, roughly about 33 million people, towards those private options, with, in all honesty, gives worse healthcare and less options for people who need those healthcare services. It would restrict access to medication abortion and access to contraception. This is key because with the elimination or with the Supreme Court getting rid of Roe v. Wade, it kind of became a state-by-state decision on abortion services. The thing that we're starting to see now, and especially in a lot of the states like Texas, Indiana, things of that nature, states that basically haven't passed any kind of law legislation to protect reproductive rights, you're now seeing states indicating they're looking at going after just contraception. So again, Project 2025 would enable those type of laws. And of course, lead to even federal laws that could, or federal actions that could impact that. And last, about 25 states, Arizona is one of those states, and Washington, D.C., allow undocumented immigrants to get in-state tuition. And in Arizona, you've heard of Dreamers. So Arizona is one of those states where we allow Dreamers to get in-state tuition. These are individuals who were raised in the United States, grew up in the United States for, reasons, that they came here very young or what have you. In the case with Project 2025, those type of that type of option would go away. So that kind of gives you kind of a snapshot. And what I want to do next is I want to talk about how they're going to do it, because that's the really important thing. We kind of know what they're going to do, and honestly, we kind of know why they're doing it, but we need to also understand, how they're going to pull it off. And so the big thing is you understand is there are about 4 important pillars to Project 2025. One part is just policy agenda. This is just, saying this is what we believe in, this is what we want, and this is what's important to the folks who are framing Project 2025. The next part is the personal database. And this is what's really kind of like wild, is that even as we're having this conversation, they are designing a database of kind of the who's who of, conservative politics, loyal supporters of Donald Trump, so on and so forth. They are basically identifying those people because in their mind, should Donald Trump be elected president, these are the people who are going to be put in all the different levels of government with the express purpose of executing Project 2025. That leads us to, of course, the Presidential Administration Academy. So one of the things that they identified with the previous Trump administration is that they didn't really know what they were doing. They didn't understand how government worked. And even though they may have appointed people into positions of power, they didn't know what the heck they were doing. And so they weren't able to navigate, the process of government to get what they want. Well, They've learned from that mistake. So what they're doing is they're training these people to be able to go in on day one and execute their plan the way they want to operate government, because now they're training these folks now to be prepared for that time period. And the last one is the 180-day playbook. And so this is a strategy that they will implement in the first 100 days, 180 days of a conservative president's administration. And the whole idea is that they know that in those first 100 days, that's where a lot of things can happen, just kind of coming out of an election, that kind of just in between time where people are leaving, folks are coming in. That's where they feel they can get a lot of this stuff entrenched into our government and then kind of go from there. So kind of remember these kind of 4 pillars as I go through how they're going to pull it off. So I want to just make sure we all are on the same page of what Project 2025 is going to attack. It's going to go after wages. It's going to go after making sure we have safe workplaces. It's ultimately going to destabilize our economy. It's going to make it much harder for Americans to just make ends meet, to be able to, earn a living in this economy or any economy. It's going after reproductive rights. It's going to go after access to healthcare. Discrimination, a lot of the legal protections that exist that address discrimination, it's going after that. For all intents and purposes, it's going to enable discrimination. When it comes to our environment, it's pretty much going to let polluters loose. It's going to impact, actions for climate change, and it's going to really undo a lot of the work that, say, the Biden administration has done to address many of the issues that impact our environment. It's going to impact the cost of education, making education unaffordable, and frankly, just unwelcoming if you don't fit a particular demographic. And ultimately, government exists for the people, and it's going to undermine the ability for the government to work on behalf of the people. So let's kind of break some of this stuff down here. And like I said, I'm going to leave this up for just a second so you guys can kind of read through it, but I'm going to hit some of the major highlights of this. So when you look at it, they're kind of four, when it comes to just wages, workplaces, our economy, you see that ultimately they're just going to try and make it harder to just navigate unless you kind of fall into their class of things. So when we look at just, kind of how they would do it when it comes to, impacting overtime pay, let's look at the Department of Labor. Under the Biden administration, this actually happened this year, they readdressed how the Department of Labor goes about overtime pay. What they did is they raised what's called the overtime threshold. And this is important because this is a salary ceiling in which if you're a salaried worker, you would actually still qualify for overtime pay. Because a lot of times, you think if you're a salary worker, you don't get overtime. That's technically not true. It's just that the threshold was a lot lower and it's been raised. And so the thing is that, just kind of give you an example. If you're a non-hourly worker that makes $43,000, say $44,000 a year, then what'll happen is with that threshold being raised, or impacted, then you would have an opportunity to make overtime if you're working over excess of a certain amount of hours. What Project 2025 wants to do is move that threshold far out of reach. So using that person making $44,000 a year, they'd have to be making close to $60,000 or $70,000 in order to be eligible for that. And so ultimately, the whole idea is they don't want to pay overtime. Another one that I think is really important to kind of understand is just really messing with our economic data. There's some really important agencies, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the Census Bureau, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Ultimately, what they want to do is they want to consolidate that, but also they want to change how we collect that information. Ultimately, what that's going to happen is, undercounts. They want to remove any references to gender or race when it comes to how they're collecting data. So ultimately, it would be a lot harder to demonstrate that, let's say, the average wage of an African-American female versus average wage of a white male. We won't have those statistics in order to look and see where the equity issues are with wages, salaries, things of that nature. Let's talk about just, something that probably impacts all of us on this call, our friends, our families, is really just, being able to like make ends meet. And here's the thing, a strong democracy like ours, we have to have resources. People have to earn money in order to, pay their bills, feed their families, just exist. And so Project 2025 actually goes against that and in some really kind of just messed up ways. Some of the big ones, of course, is food assistance. We have lots of Americans who are receiving, food benefits. And if you're familiar with SNAP, that impacts, children, the elderly, individuals with disabilities, and frankly, 92% of SNAP benefits will go to people who live at or below the federal poverty line. If you look at Project 2025, they want to get rid of SNAP. So SNAP would go away. Another program called the Thrifty Food Plan. And this is what it basically ensures that individuals who are receiving food assistance, they're getting nutritious food. And so these are two programs, just kind of giving an idea of what's at stake that would be eliminated under Project 2025. So children, the elderly, folks who are disabled, they're not going to get access to nutritious food or be able to get affordable food. You can imagine what that will do to a society or many of our communities. Another one I want to point out to is number 5 on here. I'm going to highlight that one for just a moment. Transportation projects. So if you live in South Phoenix like me, there's a lot of construction going on. They're putting in the light rail, and some people feel different ways about that. And something that's really kind of, I would say, that's important about this is that there are a lot of people who don't own cars. Or if you look at the cost of gas, they try not to drive their car anymore. And so the thing is that right now we're seeing, investment into transportation, developing more public transportation options, things like light rails, increasing buses, things of that nature. All that gets eliminated under Project 2025, which is going to impact people who, A, can't afford a vehicle, or people who, the cost of owning a vehicle, they can save money by taking the bus to work or taking the light rail to work. And then that, of course, impacts, of course, our environment as well, because fewer cars on the road mean that's fewer things going into the environment. So those are just kind of a couple of examples in this slide I want to highlight. Let's talk about reproductive rights and healthcare. With this one, roughly, majority of Americans support comprehensive health care and reproductive freedom. Now, like I said, I'm not going to get into like the nitty gritty of, do you believe in abortion or not believe in abortion? Really, when like coming to kind of like say a consensus, at least on that one, is the majority of Americans believe that ultimately let the individual work with their doctor and make decisions that make sense for them. Well, the thing is that where this is getting kind of like unfortunate with under Project 2025 is that's going to be something that's going to be taken out of folks' hands. So before I even get into that, let's just talk about medication. We know that, people who are on medication that keeps them alive, that keeps them healthy, the cost has gone up. And one of the great things that happened in this past year was Medicare being able to negotiate prices, especially for seniors or people who are currently Medicare eligible. Things like insulin. Insulin, a life-saving drug for many people, that has been capped. Project 2025 would undo that. Now at that point, there's no ability for the government to negotiate drug prices. So you, the consumer, you had to pay whatever, they're going to charge. And for some people, that could be a difference between life and death, or living a healthy life or living an unhealthy life. And that's, of course, really, really unfortunate. Now, where it gets interesting with reproductive care with abortion, how they're attacking that is basically making access to the medications hard to get to. So the thing is, the reality is that most abortions that take place, they're used with medication. And so what's happening is with Project 2025, they're going to utilize the FDA to ultimately delist that medication, make it unavailable. So individuals would not be able to use it, as well as, making it illegal for it to be transported, say if you got it out of the country or if maybe you got it from a different state, they would make that illegal as well. ultimately, the reality is that the protections that kind of currently exist, even without, say, a Roe v. Wade, those would be taken away. And frankly, the federal government, the White House, in this scenario, could fundamentally do a nationwide ban of, reproductive rights, without even it going to Congress and really having a check from the court system. So let's talk about just discrimination. And this one, I had to give this one 2 slides because it was a lot of stuff. So as we know, a lot of the areas with discrimination in our country, it's been in a lot of key places. One of the big ones, of course, is with housing. The whole idea is that, when it comes to housing, we've seen housing discrimination, everything from we've all heard the stories of people who, say black families who, they try to put their house up for sale and it gets, a lower value than a white family, things of that nature, to just a good old fashioned, we don't rent to certain types of folks. Well, over many years we've had the Department of Justice, the Civil Rights Division, we've also had the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Fair Housing Act of 1968. We've had those things that existed that have addressed a lot of those issues. Well, Project 2025 is going to zero in specifically on Title 6 and Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act and the Fair Housing Act. Basically what this would do is that it would remove the protections as well as the federal oversight into things like housing discrimination. So typically when an individual is facing housing discrimination, yes, they can go to their city or their state, but where they can definitely get, action is going to the federal government. And the thing is that will not, would no longer exist under Project 2025. Let's see. Let's talk about we've talked about Medicare, we've talked about Head Start, like a lot of those are programs that have benefited our community. Let's just be straightforward. Head Start, all of those things, with those being taken away, defunded, removed, now you'll have an entire generation of kids in our communities who will not have access to those services and thus not have the ability to, change their socioeconomic situation or be able to, have an equitable shot at, life. Let's talk about gender equity for just a moment. One of the things that is in the crosshairs for Project 2025 is the White House Gender Policy Council. And what they've done is they've done a couple different things. And one of the things that's really actually been a major part of the work they've done is going after gender-based violence. And so what they've been doing is they've been doing a major study to look at, violence against women, against people. And ultimately Project 2025 would end that work. Because the thing is, what's important about that information, that research, is that will help inform ways to address gender-based violence. So because if we don't have the numbers, if we don't have, say, the science to understand what's going on, we can't address the problem, which is why Project 2025 goes after that. So let's talk about, again, let's talk just really about, we've talked about healthcare, we've talked about, let me see, LGBTQ. Yeah, so let me see. I'm gonna kind of jump to, because I know we're probably getting close on time here. The big thing is that, we know the Supreme Court has really taken away many of the protections for the LGBTQ community and really communities of color by misinterpreting a lot of previous arguments when it comes to discrimination. And I'm going to focus on one in particular. So in 2020, there was a Supreme Court case called Bostock versus Clayton County. And the whole issue behind this was that it argued that it ensures workplace protections for LGBTQ people through making it clear that discrimination against LGBTQ people is a form of sexual discrimination prohibited by civil rights law. So ultimately, what would happen is that Project 2025, of course, with the help of the courts, there wouldn't be anyone to enforce these rules because those agencies would either be, taken out completely or just, they wouldn't follow through with that. But ultimately what it does is that it's going to impact, folks being treated fairly. And only thing I always like to say to people is wherever you are in the LGBTQ issue, understand that if one group of people can be discriminated against, it opens up the door to everyone else. And so not having protections where an employer can say, well, I don't like this particular person. Well, maybe it's someone who is gay, but maybe tomorrow it's someone who's Muslim, or maybe it's someone who's Hindu, or maybe it's someone who's a female, because all of this stuff, all, is interconnected. And so not having those protections can really negatively, impact our society. And as a member of a community that has historically been discriminated against, having opportunities to just, have my own self-determination, it's been because of protections like the Civil Rights Acts, Fair Housing Rights Acts, things of that nature. Okay, let's talk about our climate, and we're kind of in the home stretch here. So this one, I'm gonna really, one of the biggest things, and this is fairly recent. If you've heard of something called the Chevron Doctrine, this is what allows federal agencies to fundamentally enforce, federal law, or investigate, or address issues that are impacting federal law. I want to focus on just the environment, since that's the slide we're on. So as I stated earlier, Project 2025 wants to go after, a lot of these agencies, or at least put people in charge who will, do what, whatever the president wants them to do. Now, the thing why this is really crazy is this happened fairly recently in Tucson. If you're familiar, there's an Air Force Base, David Moffett Air Force Base, and the people living in that immediate area have actually sued them because of pollution into water sources near the base. Now, in previous years, prior to the Supreme Court's decision, then yeah, you could go to the spacing on the name, the EPA. You go to the EPA. The EPA could say, hey, guess what? We're mandating that you're going to clean up. We're going to fine you. They would have different, ways to enforce this. That the Davis Monthan Air Force Base has actually made the first argument that's gone in the court, saying like, well, yeah, we're polluting, but the FDA has no jurisdiction to do anything to us about it. And of course, that's a result of the Chevron Doctrine. So now, if you're thinking about it, if you live in an area, and I live in an area in South Phoenix where our climate is not great as other parts of the city for a variety of reasons, I would have to sue as an individual against, say, the city of Phoenix or the state of Arizona or whatever major company, and the likelihood of me winning is next to nil. Having for example, an EPA that I can go to address that issue gives me an equal opportunity to address, say, an issue of polluting. Ultimately, these are real dangerous things that will impact climate action. Number two, I'll highlight that one real quick. Disbanding of the National Oceanography and Atmospheric Administration. This one's actually, and I got to point this one out, this one was just petty. If you think back to, a few years ago, there was that we were having, of course, severe storms impacting the East Coast, and President Trump wanted the NOAA to change the data regarding how destructive the storm would be and how much impact it would have. And they refused because they said, that's not what we do. We're here to provide information. And so it's kind of not surprising that this particular agency was focused in on to be eliminated, as well as other science-based government agencies that, frankly, are necessary to our country. Okay, let's talk about education. Education. The big thing with Project 2025 is that it's going to do just horrible things to public education. It's going to, of course, cut federal programs for student loans, student grants, all of those things getting rolled back. Basically, if you like I said, if you weren't born wealthy, education is going to be a much, say, college is going to be something is going to be very difficult to afford. On top of that, protections for LGBTQ students, those type of things will go away, as well as just the entire Department of Education. That's one of the agencies that would be removed under a Project 2025, which, if you don't know what the Department of Education does, they do a lot of things, but one of the things where they really provide a lot of assistance, especially in states like Arizona, where our education funding isn't the best. So a lot of the shortfall that should be paid for by the state. The Department of Education directs funds into our schools. So you can imagine if that agency doesn't exist, there are a lot of things that our public schools would lose out on financially that the federal government is meeting the gap that, you know, our state is not meeting. Of course, you know, you're familiar with school vouchers, the private school vouchers. Under Project 2025, that would make it an easier thing to take place where, you know, you have public funds going into private schools. These could be schools that, you know, get to choose who gets to attend there. But our public dollars are going into, and fundamentally with school vouchers, it's, and like I said, the numbers don't lie. In Arizona, about 75% of the people who are taking private school vouchers, their children didn't spend 1 minute in public school. These are people who are already currently paying for and affording private educations, but now it's being subsidized by us at the cost of our own public schools that are seeing economic shortfalls across the state. Doesn't matter if it's a, you know, a wealthy district or a not so wealthy district, they're all losing money. All right. We've talked about this a little bit, but I just want to reiterate that, again, what Project 2025 will do, at least to our government, to like how it operates, you know, and when I talked about the permanent side of the government, think about all the people who work in government. Some of you on this call might be a government employee. You don't have to identify yourself because, you know, you shouldn't. But my point being is, simply put, many of those jobs are going to be replaced by people who are just loyal to an ideology or to an individual. And that's going to negatively impact many aspects, especially if these people aren't really qualified to do any of the jobs that they're now in charge of. It's going to impact a lot of folks who are from our community, because many folks from our community have found a lot of, you know, professional and economic success working in government. And so a lot of, you know, those people will be removed because they will not, say, necessarily pass a loyalty test to then stay there, versus just being qualified to do the work that they do. Also factor in that you're losing a lot of institutional knowledge. Yes, you may be doing an online class to teach you how economic security works, but if you don't actually have a lot of institutional knowledge, are you really qualified to run that department? This is I call this my final list of Project 2025 foolishness. I'm not going to read all this to you. You can see it here, but I just want to hit some of the things that they want to get rid of. Things like, you know, no fault divorce, that would be illegal. Even more tax breaks for corporations, raising the retirement age so those of you thinking you're going to retire in the next couple of years, if Project 2025 happens, that's probably not going to happen. We've talked, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion protections in government eliminated. One big in birthright citizenship. It is kind of a laundry list of things that, frankly, are discriminatory, they're ignorant, they're hurtful, and they do nothing for our society in any way, shape, or form. So I've talked about a lot of bad here, and I want to talk about some good before we move into the discussion part. So the thing is, how do we stop Project 2025 is kind of the big question. The big thing is, like, many of you guys are on this call, you're doing that. You're becoming informed, okay? We're recording this. This is going to go on our YouTube channel. So if you missed something that I said or you want to hear it again, you can watch it. Matter of fact, if you know somebody who wasn't able to make this, share this with them so they can at least get this information as well. We've got to have these conversations. We have to talk about these things. The other part, now I said, I'm not going to tell you to vote for or how to vote, but as you're trying to make the decision on when, you know, you have a ballot in front of you, look at the folks who are, you know, supporting policies that oppose this type of stuff. You know, who's out here saying that this is a good idea versus the people who say, no, this is a horrible idea and this is not going to help our society. And the last part is vote. I'm going to say it one more time for the folks in the back. Vote the entire ballot. You know, yes, it's important to vote for who's going to be president. It's important who's going to be in our Senate. But we got a lot of different lower ballot things, like county recorder who impacts our election system, to our board of supervisors who basically, you know, are kind of the council that, you know, addresses the needs countywide. pay attention to who these folks are. Make sure you're not skipping those races. Make sure you learn who they are, because at the end of the day, we do have a way to combat Project 2025, and that is the ability to vote and have conversations and talk with people who are not informed, are not thinking about this stuff, or they're operating on bad information. So just to kind of to conclude this whole thing, I would say Project 2025 is bad news all the way around. Our American democracy, as we know it, is done if this were to come to pass. Marginalized communities, Black, Brown, LGBTQ, Asian, there's Project 2025 wasn't written for us. Okay, I'll just be blunt on that part. Public education. I'm a product of public education from kindergarten all the way up to graduate school. And I would guess that many of you guys on this call are as well. So you can imagine what that will do for our future, who will need public education as a way to move up in this world. And last but not least, social equity programs, things like Medicare, about SNAP, about, even just school, financial aid for school. All those programs are going to go away. And again, that is designed to hurt folks like us. There's no other way to say it. I told you from the beginning, I'm gonna call it what it is. That's what we're looking at. So of course, here's my sources, which there are a lot. Like I said, this will be going on the branch's YouTube page. So again, if you want to look at some of this stuff on your own, we'll put this in the comments in the video. That way you can do your own research or look or whatnot. And that is into my presentation. I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Harden to kind of help facilitate the discussion part.
Thank you very much for presenting the facts. And at this point, I would entertain any comments. Anyone have any comments or questions? And in case I can't see you, kind of just my screen is blocked. So if you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself or comment. Any comments? So I have a question, Patrick, a comment. This is for anybody, right? When we talk about destabilizing our economy, one thing that strikes me is this contradiction between eliminating programs like SNAP that help low-income families. And also, I wonder if it's helpful for us to be able to break the myth that low-income families are not all just BIPOC families, right? Low-income families are basically all colors. So we're going to stop aid that helps low-income families, and at the same time, we're going to be pro-life, so that there's no people cannot access abortions if they need it. And I think that will hurt more low-income people than in the general population. So you're going to have more increasing like the low folks who need help, perhaps.
So if I'm understanding your question, it's like, the kind of misconception that people who receive benefits are families
all
of color.
Black and brown folks, right?
Well, the thing is you have to look at kind of the strategy and who's making that claim. We can go back to as far as let's go back to historically to Ronald Reagan when he was running for president, and he kind of perpetuated the myth of the welfare queen. Now, keep in mind that social programs have existed as far back as in 1930s. Coming out of the Great Depression, and at that time, Black folks, Latino folks were not eligible to get those benefits, and those benefits were considered life-saving for people who were coming out of the Depression and things of that nature. So, unfortunately, there's this trope that has proven I can say effective in many cases to, if you want to attack a program, create some sort of social argument of who is and who isn't the deserving of it, and thus, make those folks the other. So, and that's kind of that's what you're kind of seeing. And honestly, the people who are, promoting Project 2025, they don't care about folks who are poor, period. Black, brown, white, Latino, Asian, they don't care about those folks. They see them as a means to an end, because notice that one thing I didn't talk about was things like prison reform or for-profit prisons or things like that. Because if if poor folks can't work, even like, low wage jobs to, for large companies or the rich or however you want to look at it, then you can just send them to prison for a variety of reasons, and you can get income out of them that way.
Okay. Would you you referred to 2 court cases. Would you type those cases in the chat? There was a question in the chat, like, what was the court case you referenced? And I believe I heard you reference 2 court cases. So
I'm going through my notes because I was like, you guys don't see my side of things. I write a lot of notes. So I'm to help me out. Whoever would like those court cases, what was I referring to the time I mentioned the court cases?
Marilena, would you unmute yourself and reference which court case you're most interested in, please?
Yes, thank you. Both court cases, if you're able to. I keep a lot of notes as well, so no worries. But it's when you were talking specifically about the housing rights.
Okay, yeah. Let me go to those notes, and I'll drop that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think. Oh, I know. Bostock v Clayton County. Oh no, that was for LGBTQ, but there's a different one. So I'll drop that one here. When I was talking about housing, I was actually citing the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Fair Housing Act of 1968. So that's what I was referencing with those.
And we'll make sure you get a copy of if that's okay, Patrick, that she gets a copy of your reference page, right?
Yeah.
The PowerPoint reference page. Right. Good. Okay. Any other comments? And like I said, please just unmute yourself and talk. I can't see my full screen for some reason today.
Dr. Harden,
yes.
It's Pamela. And my apologies that you can't see me right now, but you don't want to see me right now. I guarantee you.
Are you still in Kenya?
I just got back today.
Okay. All right.
I guess where I'm having difficulty is looking at the whole holistic approach to Project 2025, looking at the implications, which are all deplorable. First, Patrick, that was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful presentation that you gave. And then we talk about our country being polarized. And many of those factors that have been mentioned are going to, in fact, impact a number of the people that I see standing behind Trump in the same way that it would impact us. And that's where I don't quite understand where the mentality of the logic is, or is there an underpinning thing there? Perhaps racism is it, that is causing the type of division or a part of our community, society, to align itself with the policies of Donald Trump, the Trumpster, and agree with them when it's going to be negative for many of them as well? Or is there some mechanism that's in place, and I don't think that there is, that protects them? So I guess even with that being said, how can we shed light on the big picture for that population of people to understand what is before them and what is going to occur, and that he does not care and his cohorts do not care about them at all, that they are being used as pawns. So where do we go? And what do we do to pull those people over when they don't understand that they are harming themselves? I just don't quite understand it. I look at them at the news and I look at their faces, I look at their countenances, and I look at their ages, and I look sort of assume their professions, and I think to myself, where is your intellect? What are you thinking about the larger scheme of things as far as humanity is concerned? And there may not be an answer there, but it is something that continues to disturb me and for me to really be concerned about.
Okay, I have a brief thought. It's just brief. Propaganda. Everyone doesn't watch the news programs that we watch that may have facts. The information that they get reiterates all the fears, certain people coming after whatever you have, people threatening your status in terms of a hierarchy within society. People coming, just pouring over the border just to come and kill you. All those things are on repeat over and over and over. And it's the same, I've said this before, it's the same formula that was used in the 40s and 50s to dismantle all government controls so that one entity, the people at the top, economically, and their, friends or whatever, they have total advantage over everyone else. The thing that stopped it from progressing in the 30s, even the 70s, during the Nixon administration, similar things were tried, was the media. That's why you hear plans, well, you hear propaganda about the media. It started early with Donald Trump. It's to get people not to believe the facts and just look over here at other types of news programs that repeat what they're trying to implant in people's minds as fact. So I guess the short answer is, what can we do? I think there were some very profound things that were mentioned during the Democratic Convention. They're profound but difficult. The listen to your neighbors and kind of hear. But I think a lot of us have learned over the years in terms of preventing facts, to people, it does not change their minds. So I think maybe what we can do when we have the opportunity is try to get at the emotional piece. What are they afraid of? Kind of hear them out, maybe bring them along kind of that way. But I just think it's important to know this is a formula that's been tried before, and it came really close. But the media and the public stopped it. The citizens stopped it. We can stop it. But that's the only way, those two things together.
Well,
so
Princess,
let me throw one thought in here real quick. So everything Princess said, spot on. It's a couple of things you have to look at, and I want to key on a couple, like just three points here. The first point is fear, and it gets down to we're all guilty of this. Even us on this call, we have a thinking brain and we have a feeling brain, and it's a lot easier for us to kind of be ruled by our feeling brain so much to our thinking brain. And for a lot of people in this country who grew up either in the social, racial majority, this country has changed a lot. It's changed for the better. I think we can all agree this changed for the better. But for a lot of those people, that fear is driving them. And so that fear is so potent that, and this brings me to my second point of, how media information is utilized, is that our media is monetized. Let's just keep it real. It's about selling as many papers, getting as many people to watch, and get as many clicks as possible. And so what drives a lot of that is getting eyes on things. It's a reason why, often you notice that more negative things on social media seem to catch traction than positive things. And so there's a lot of money on the table for a lot of people who don't really care one way or another about the outcome to fuel these folks' fear. I mean, you have networks like Fox, you have Newsmax, things that they exist simply to okay how these folks are feeling. And now you have a presidential candidate who that's kind of his brand of how he's going to conduct his thing. And here's the third part. I think, I want to agree with the comment about, what they said in the DNC. I want to say I think it was a former President Clinton who said this, of like, you need to talk with folks. You need to also respect folks. You need to bring them along, because I would say that, as I've observed it, sometimes even when we're trying to convince others, that this stuff shouldn't be scary, you shouldn't be afraid of this, or this is, natural progression, we often do it in ways that is either too fast with folks or just flat out disrespectful, and those people close down. Because the thing is, nobody's going to listen to somebody who has insulted them or they don't like. And the thing is, we're not going to fix our country overnight. We're not going to fix these issues overnight, because honestly, what we're talking about in this call has been talked about for the last 80, 90 years of this country. So, but the thing is, we have gotten better. We have. And so, like I said, I wish there was a quick fix. If I knew it, I'd be publishing books left and right and be doing like the lecture circuit. But the reality is that we got to start small. And some people, they're ready to listen. They're ready to change. Some folks are on a different journey, but it's a numbers game. We can get more people to say, all right, I may not really rock with this particular issue. Matter of fact, it's not something that just squares with my belief system. However, I wouldn't want somebody to treat me this way, so I won't treat them wrong, and I won't support somebody who wants to do people dirty. Period. If we can get folks to do that, I think we're on the right track. And that might be the thing that we have to deal with some folks, is just understand that if you don't like Mexicans and you think that they're taking away your jobs and stuff like that, they got families, they got to eat too. And have you honestly had a negative interaction with the people you are so afraid of? Or did you just hear it from Twitter or from the TV? Those type of things. Really, think about, why you feel the way you do, and how would you feel if it was reversed?
I agree with what Prince has said. The notion of facts. I agree. I remember quite well when the press secretary of Trump coined the term an alternative fact. I remember when she said that. And there wasn't any major effort to counter that. As a matter of fact, on one trip to Washington, there was a hat and a shirt that said alternative facts. And I bought it because within alternative facts, in the letters in red, it had lies. And so we let things be said, but we don't counter it. We let it take traction. And that's where I think, oh my goodness, now I'm going to get into trouble. But I think that is the problem. Social media, it being repeated over and over again, and we don't say, are you listening to that? Alternative, a fact is a fact. A fact is a fact. Let's define fact. What do you mean alternative? Let's get to the skinny on this. What is a fact? And it's just like the flag. We have relinquished the flag. A long time ago, I said we should be driving around with flags on our cars. And I, in this ultimate position, not from a political perspective, but a policy perspective, I do think that there is more a taking of the ownership of this country by us, and where just not select people have a voice, but other people have a voice, and that voice can be equally as strong as the voice that has been very strong as of late. So I don't know, I don't know the answer, but I do think that we are not competitive. We relinquish a number of opportunities that we have to counter some of the things that are occurring. And yes, I know it can be frightening and it can be jeopardizing, but I do think we are trying to play on the straight and narrow when we are playing with some people who are not necessarily on the straight and narrow. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just I was reflecting on what Patrick said about the media. They are a corporate entity, and notice lately, if you really push back, people like Don Lemon, he was just calling this politician out on lies. He lost his job. So I think, in terms of the pushback and the media doing it repeatedly, the way we haven't had real news uh, outlets since the 70s. We don't really have, all the media programs are for profit. So they're protecting, like their jobs. So I think there's hope in the media that they can help us. But that's why I said it takes the media and people together. I think a lot of hope in the media, the way it's structured now, they're only going to go so far. So those are my thoughts.
So let me conclude by saying thank you very much for everybody who gave time today. And I think what we're all saying, is we need more to the polls in 2024, more to the polls in 24. And even if each one of us can do something small, something large or small, based upon our sensibility, even talking to I'm going to say 4 in 24, if we can talk to 4 family members or friends, and have the uncomfortable conversations, and then us trying to stay updated on the facts. And there's so much out there, but that can help. Like how do we make incremental changes? Well, one, I'm trying to make sure that I stay aware and that I stay woke, that I understand the facts and the issues. And let me invite everyone, Tuesday, September the 3rd, the NAACP is hosting another discussion, September 3rd, 6 p.m. at the Culture Hub, 735 Grand Avenue in Phoenix. We're going to keep diving into these issues. We're going to be talking about policies and the impact of what the Supreme Court is doing. And that's one way I think that we can help foster change that helps everyone. The phrase I really like is building from the middle out. And what by that meaning, looking at policies that really help the middle class. And I think when we say middle class, we're also talking about, what is it, like lower middle, middle, upper middle, or even those below. What helps the middle class is going to help the lower class as well. So we could all focus on maybe trying to have conversations with our family and friends and not assume that they are all in for voting. And the one thing I remember hearing one person say, I mean, I saw it on the news. My eyes didn't deceive me when they showed one candidate saying, if you just vote this one time, I'm paraphrasing, but it was pretty close. If you vote this one time, you won't have to vote anymore.
Yeah,
I think we have to take these statements, because that's a fact that came out of that person's mouth, and not avoid confronting and making sure everybody, did you hear what was said? What does that mean? That could mean if you vote this one time and I get in office, you won't have to worry about voting anymore because I'm going to change all the laws so there aren't any more elections. We won't have to worry about the Civil Rights Voting Act because if we don't try to get everybody out to vote, we may not have a chance to vote again. So please join us if your time makes it possible for you. September 3rd, 6 p.m. at the Cultural Hub. And Patrick, I know, did you want to put in the chat or talk about the event happening on the 29th?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll drop in the chat in just a moment. So if you guys are familiar with, Representative Justin Jones, he's a member of what was called the Tennessee Three. These were legislators in the Tennessee state legislature he was one of the three who were expelled simply for wanting the state legislature to take gun violence against children seriously. Well, he's going to be coming to Phoenix on Thursday, August 29th. It's part of a voter engagement outreach event that's going on. He's going to be obviously talking about what he's doing now, the importance of voting. It's an opportunity for people to get registered to vote, to really kind of meet other folks who are running for office. We're inviting candidates there. I will drop the link here in just a moment. But it's a great, I think it's going to be a great night. Tell your friends, come out. And like I said, it's opportunity to really, I would say there are very few opportunities you get to meet real American heroes. And this is one of those opportunities. So I'll put that in the chat in just a moment here.
Okay. All right. Any other announcements? And if not, we will thank you, and we'll be back on the 4th Saturday for our next membership meeting. Okay. So we'll conclude the meeting, and Patrick, if you drop that in the chat, it'll still stay there for a minute or two, right? If anybody
as long as folks don't leave right away.
Right. Okay. All right.
I'll have it here. Give me like 30 more. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. There you go. It's in there.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for this very informative presentation. You need to take it on the road. This was amazing. It was amazing. And I just want to say thank you so much. And I am definitely going to share the link and send people to our website so that they can look at it, because this was amazing. Thank you.
Good. Okay.
And Dr. Harden.
Yes.
Are you ready for me to end?
End us in a meditation, please.
Okay.
Yes.
First of all, I want to say that fear is false evidence that appears real. That's what we're dealing with. We know all these lies. We know they're not real. False evidence appears real. But we will have a blessed weekend, but I'll leave you with John 15:11. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. We're going to stand on the joy that was like the theme of the convention, and we're going to go forward. And guess what? We're going to do something. Amen.
Thank you. All right. Because joy comes in the morning, right?
Amen. Amen.
All right. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Amen.
Thank you.